already drank that whole shape? This, as I'm sure most of you have already guessed, is Amethyst. It's from Uruguay. All of these pieces are internally clean, they're internally flawless, and there's no color zoning on any of these pieces of amethyst. So I just need to look through and pick one that's kind of the right shape and size that I want. Something that's already kind of in a roundish shape since I'm going to cut a round design. The piece of amethyst rough that I selected weighs in at just over 5 carats. And based on my cutting experience and looking at the shape of the stone and the design that I'm going to cut, I can pretty well guesstimate that the final round gemstone that I cut with this design will probably weigh in around 1.5 carats. But let's find out. I already have the gem faceting design that I will use on this piece of amethyst rough. The design is called Temple Ruins, and it was created by Arya Akavan. Arya has put the design into the public domain. You can find it on the Gemology Project website for any cutter to give a try. And I really appreciate that. Thanks, Arya. Here is the website where you can get the Temple Ruins design. And when I cut this design, and I've cut it several times before, the gemstone that I cut should look like this from the top side and the bottom. For our amethyst, I'm going to just set it in the machine and lock it in. And I'm going to start with a set of instructions number 2, the girdle. And I'm going to set the girdle first, cutting it at 90-degree angle. And that'll set my width of my stone. And I'm going to use a 340 topper to start my preforming. Okay, I'll be working on the P2 line of instruction next to polish up the final facets on the pavilion. So for the P2, although it says to start with 0, and I'll start with 95 because 95 and 1 go together, 23 and 25 go together. 47, 49, and 71, 73. So I don't want to start with half of kind of the facet, so it's the 95 that I'll start with. So I'll set my Ultratech machine at 41.3 degrees. And now I'll use my cerium oxide and facet the 95 tooth. Okay, so I've got a slow drip set on my water and give the lap 2 squirts from my cerium oxide bottle. And I'll go ahead and polish the 95 tooth and the 1 tooth, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, those 2 facets right there shining. That one and that one. Those are the 2 that I just polished. And that's why I go for the 95 and the 1 instead of the 1 by itself, because they're right side by side. They're kind of a pair. So I've got the 1 and the 95 done, so now I'll go the rest of the way around the index and polish the final facets on the pavilion. Alright, I've cut the bottom half or the pavilion of our amethyst. Now I will transfer the stone so I can cut the upper half or the crown of the stone. Okay, on the pavilion of our amethyst, you can see right there the flashing facet. That's the P2 because it forms a little point at the girdle. And every 4 facets over, you'll hit another one, 3, 4, right here, right there. And those are the P2 line of instructions, and they have to line up between the bottom part, the P2 on the bottom, with the C3 line of instruction on the top. So what I do is I make sure, I've found it useful to use my Sharpie, and where the P2 is, just make a little mark with my permanent marker on that between the 2 facets. Right there's a, and it's every 4 facets over. So that way when I put the stone in my Ultratech and I line it up, I know that any of those marked Sharpie points could be the 96 index. So that's how I align my stone when I do the transfer. Otherwise, the little 4 points that you cut in the P2 line of instruction won't line up with the top. So in this one case, you got to be careful on the transfer. Okay, for the second line of instructions on the crown, the C2 line of instructions, I'm going to be cutting here, a facet here, to bring this down and level the girdle. And there's 8 facets around it, so it'll take care of, one will take care of this side and one will take care of this side. So then I'll have a level girdle, and so I'll use my 12M lap to cut the C2 line of instruction. So I set the angle on my Ultratech to 33.46 degrees to cut this line of instructions, and I start with the index tooth of 9 and work around the 8 index teeth per the instructions. Okay, for my 12M lap, I get a pretty good drip going, something like that, just to wash all the way all the swarf, the quartz swarf that I grind in there. I want to wash that away as I'm going, and I'll get about a 500 RPMs works about fine for this, because I don't want to leave as few scratches as I can, because I want to try to go to polish from my 12M if that's possible. So I've cut down just where I need it, so I'll go finish going around the set of instruction, all 8 of the index teeth. So I've leveled the girdle with my 12M all the way around, and I'm going to need to take a little bit more off, go down a little bit further. There's one place that has a little bit more rough to be removed right here. You can see it. I'm not going to try to polish that out. I'll use my 8000 grit diamond on a zinc lap. So my 8000 grit diamond on a zinc lap was moving the facets, but it was kind of slow, so I went back to my 12M and moved the facets there, brought everything down in alignment, used that to pre-polish. So now I'll polish straight from my 12M, and I'll use the creamway lap and cerium oxide. Okay, now when I clean any of my laps, my toppers, any of my steel laps with diamond in them, Not the matrix laps, not the bat laps, but the steel laps with diamond. What I use is I go over it with lava soap, and so I put it at pretty good rotation. I bring the water up to almost a full go of water, and then I'd give it 3 swipes from the inside to the outside with my lava soap. And usually it's a little darker, a little more. Usually if I'm cutting a larger stone or do a lot more cutting, there'll be a lot more swarf, and it will actually see it kind of dark black on the lava soap. But this stone's so small, and that last row was just moving a little bit of swarf, so it didn't really dirty my 12M. But that's how I go through polishing it each time I use it. And then I also, of course, every once in a while, if I get something in it and causing scratches, I'll use one of those blue Brillo, those blue pads for dishes with the scrubbers, and I'll go over that with I use Dawn soap and the scrubber and go over those. But that's how I clean it. Then I wash off all the lava soap, and then I'll spin dry the lap and put it away. The crown polished right up with cerium oxide, so now I'll cut the table and polish it. Not going to take much to polish this, cut and polish this table, so I'll probably start with my 12M, and if it does a good pre-polish like it did on the rest of the crown, I'll go straight to the creamway after that. The table polished right up with the cerium oxide, so now I will take our stone and put it in the acetone, soak it to get it off the top, and we'll weigh it, measure it, and send it off to BOPIE. I want to see how this design looks in amethyst. Today I cut a beautiful piece of amethyst rough from Uruguay into Aria's Temple Ruins design, and that final gemstone really does sparkle. Temple Ruins is not a difficult design to cut, but I wouldn't cut it as my first stone as a new cutter because it's a bit tricky. You do have to make sure that the top and the bottom of your gemstone are aligned properly. So when you do the transfer, you just have to pay attention and make sure you do the transfer properly. I think the design is very bright, very brilliant, and it really does make that final gemstone stand out. But please let me know in the comments what you think of this gemstone and the design. And as always, happy fastening, everyone.